Split Take Podcast, episode number 72. This week we're going to be talking about the new Burnham comedy special. And the BFI Sight and Sound 2012 movie of the week is Goodfellas. It is which is a Scorsese film. Sure, you've heard of it. If you haven't, are you even a fan of cinema?
Well, we'll get to that.
We shall get to that indeed. But before we get to that, we are going to try to do an abbreviated movie diary section as we usually do. But first, Chandler and I were recently in Los Angeles, and we went to the famous Amoeba Records. Yes. Went to the very famous Amoeba Records in Hollywood, and we got some Blu-rays. We also got some Blu-rays the past week for various reasons. So I think we'll start with Blu-ray stuff, and we'll go to brief diary. Anything interesting we watched, and then on to our main event.
So who wants to start?
You froze.
Did I?
Yeah, well, now you're not. Okay.
Now I'm good? Okay.
Yes. We are yet again live. What'd you get?
I'll go through the Amoeba ones real quick because it's a rare occurrence for me where most of the Blu-rays I got were movies I have not yet seen. One of them that I do not currently have on me because it is currently at my girlfriend's house is John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. I like getting John Carpenter DVDs because they have so many special features. They always have like 3 or 4 commentaries, theatrical trailers, behind the scenes stuff, documentaries. They're always like 2 or 3 discs long, and John Carpenter is one of my favorite filmmakers. As far as movies that I've already seen, I picked up a classic, and that is Under the Silver Lake, one of your all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
I don't know why I don't have this already. Doesn't matter because I have it now, and it felt very appropriate picking it up in Los Angeles, California. The other ones I got, I have not yet seen. And one of the other things that I like to do every time I take a record store trip like this is to get something that I have not only not seen, but have never heard of. Wow. This time, I like to do that every time. And this time I went with a movie called River's Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with it because it's got a lot of my favorite things, such as young people being murdered, real life crime stories. It's got a pretty stacked cast. It's got Keanu Reeves. It's got Dennis Hopper, Crispin Glover, who I recently became a fan of after finally seeing Back to the Future.
Who directed this?
I don't know. Hold on.
Interesting. I do find it interesting that with a cast like that, we haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Director Tim Hunter. Because I guess it has a commentary track. Yeah, I never heard of this. It sounds interesting as far as I found it in the cult section, which that's always fun. So it looks very Twin Peaksy. I don't know what year it is. 87, so I guess it precedes Twin Peaks. But I'm gonna watch this soon. I'll update you. Another one.
I'd love to hear about it.
Babylon. Which is a movie I've wanted to see for a very long time.
Which is currently on the Criterion Channel and leaving.
It is. It's about to leave. Which was lucky because I think I even texted Jacob like a week or two that I was going to watch it, but now that I have it, I can put it off for a little bit more. It seems interesting. It's like it's a British film. I'm always interested in British films. It seems to be very racially charged, and given I don't know much about racial tensions in England, it seems interesting. It's got a lot of special features, which I appreciate. It's been on my watch list forever. Finally excited to watch it. Also, I got some birthday stuff because it was my birthday recently. And 2 movies I got. One is a little movie called The Lake Michigan Monster.
It's
an Arrow released film. Comes from the cinematic heartland of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was very interested in this because the premise looked interesting. It's very Monty Python-y. It's basically about a young or a group of sailors, as they find the titular Lake Michigan monster. I do love silliness. I love nautical stuff. But I was very interested in
nautical
this because
nonsense.
Nautical nonsense. It's something I do wish. I was very interested in this because this film was made for a total of about $6,000.
That is a very small budget.
It is
Smaller
absolutely
than
insane.
When was it? How old is it?
2018 is when it was.
Okay,
released.
so inflation isn't an issue with this calculation.
No,
because this is smaller than the budget we were even considering for
yes,
to film your feature
for our movie.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested. But this is something I've been interested for a while. But one thing that has just absolutely got me even more intrigued was the shit ton of special features in the back. One of which is 2 commentary tracks by the writer-director Ryland Twos, and it says in parentheses, 1 sober, 1 drunk, which that is just brilliant. Sober commentary, drunken commentary, that's just wonderful. And finally,
so maybe you can be the you can do a similar thing except 1 sober and 1 high.
I would love to leave my mark. Make history
in the history of movie commentaries.
I also went ahead and got Sorcerer, William Friedkin, who I enjoy.
His version of The Wages of Fear.
Yes, and The Wages of Fear is an excellent movie, and I really really like it. And the only thing I don't like about The Wages of Fear is like the last 30 seconds. But it's a very tense movie. If you don't know the premise, it's basically an American that is stranded in South America, doesn't have enough money to get out, is given the task of transporting about 1 or 2 tons of nitroglycerin in these trucks across the tumultuous South American jungle. It is a very stressful movie. The Wages of Fear is, at least. And given William Friedkin's absolutely batshit directing style, I expect no less than a good remake. I'm probably going to watch it tonight. Jacob, what do you have?
Ooh, good question. Quite a bit. So I'm going to run through it. This with the price tag still on it.
Orson Welles.
It does.
He looks vaguely Wellesian.
Vaguely like he could a character from like The Lighthouse or something from a variety of movies. Probably would look at home, sticking his head into Under the Silver Lake or something like that. Anyway,
also Jean Renoir, who we've covered on this podcast before, right?
Yes, yes. Director wise, sorry, I thought you were. Was. I didn't realize that was the end of your sentence, your contribution. No. Anyway, yes, it's a Jean Renoir film. I haven't seen it. I've been watching a bit more of him recently, particularly back at the beginning of the year when we watched Grand Illusion and The Rules of the Game. So be curious to see what this is. This is nice and short, 84 minutes. It is a Criterion Collection DVD, and that's just a funny little man. It's yeah. Anyway,
it's a funny little man.
Let me see. What did I get at Zia first? Oh, yes. So I got Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, which is Ang Lee's debut feature, ? I don't know. But I do like watching directors and just kind of like filling out the filmography a little bit. And this seems like not something I've seen from him before. Like not like other things I've seen from him, because Crouching Tiger, Life of Pi, these are kind of like
the
big
Hulk
budget action movies, and this seems like just a family, a good old Asian family drama, which, as we know, tend to be pretty good.
Tend to be,
yes. There's another DVD somewhere. No, there's a Blu-ray. What was it? Yes, Touch of Evil. I got Touch of
Ironically
Evil.
enough.
Yes, after we reviewed it the other week, I realized this is backwards in the... Anyway, I realized it's not on Amazon, which is terrible. I don't know what they're doing with this Blu-ray, but I found it at Zia, and I realized that the Blu-ray is has one of the craziest commentaries of all time, because it doesn't have just one commentary, but 4 feature-length commentaries. I don't even know who is on all of them, but I do know it features Charlton Heston and Janet Leigh. And
interesting.
There's some documentaries, there's some other stuff, but most importantly, it includes the theatrical version, the reconstructed version, according to Orson Welles' studio notes, and then also the preview version. So there are 3 different copies of Touch of Evil on here, which, wow, that's a jam-packed for just what appears to be just like your normal everyday Blu-ray disc. So I did 2 trips this past week. One to Barnes & Noble, in which I did not intend to get anything, but I found a few things under $10, and I was like, fuck it, why not? Thought there was one more, but we can just go through these. So I got the Maltese Falcon.
Oh, I have that same exact release, also from Barnes & Noble.
Yes. Nothing more to say. I haven't seen it. I know Chandler's not too fond of it, but American Graffiti.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
George Lucas is a hack, though.
George Lucas is interesting, and I've not seen any other movies of his other than Star Wars stuff.
Not THX?
No, I have TH. I've had it for
years.
You've
seen the yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying. He hasn't done much.
No, I've seen stuff he's produced, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've seen his fingers in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, speaking of John Carpenter, I got The Thing.
Whoa.
Overdue for a rewatch.
Which one did you get?
This one?
Oh, I have that one, yeah. Because, like I was saying with In the Mouth of Madness, the one I have is like the Shout Factory release, and that one has 5 commentary tracks.
5.
Carpenter's because Carpenter does like Edgar Wright and John Carpenter always have a lot of commentaries because they'll do it like with the actors, and then they'll do one with like the crew, and then they'll have their DP do a commentary track. It's very interesting, but that's also a solid release. I mean, as long as you get the movie.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Recently went into my top 10.
I feel like I got one more at Barnes & Noble, but maybe that was it. So then I went to Bookman's, a local.
Oh my god!
Well, an Arizona
triple trip
thing. Well, yeah, and a lot of these are again. I don't think I paid more than $10 for any of these, which was nice.
That's good. Solid.
Yeah, it's very good. I got Mr. Turner because
hey,
Mike Lee. Why not? Timothy Spall.
God, I love Mike Lee.
So I haven't seen this. Blind buy. Exactly half of these were blind buys. I got 6. So 3 blind buys, 3 not blind buys. Man on Fire. I have this is
Denzel Washington?
Yeah. Tony Scott, brother of Ridley Scott. I have seen clips of this before, and I think the editing class in college. And I was just like, why not? Maybe it's time to watch it.
Hey, maybe it's time.
It was kind of like the shrug my shoulders, and I have no reason to buy this, but why not? Speaking of directors that I've been going through their filmography, I've watched quite a few of Steve McQueen's filmography this year, and I'm going to continue that with Widows. I haven't seen.
Every time I hear Steve McQueen, the first thing I think of is the actor. It's a very unfortunate name, having the same name as him, but
yeah, it is unfortunate. And
Steve McQueen is a very talented director.
He's a very talented director, and I still need to finish Small Axe. I have 2 more to go. I'm halfway through that.
Oh my god, I completely forgot about Small Axe. Now I got to get my Amazon subscription back.
Interesting. All right, and then the 3 rewatches, or not blind buys, are 3 Days of the Condor, which
Good old Robert Redford,
has Robert Redford and Max von Sydow, who is very memorable in this film as a hitman. And I was trying to think there's a movie I watched recently. Oh, Blowout. This is a comment I forgot to make on our Blowout review. Is the John Lithgow in that film plays the hitman, who I think for the most part is underwhelming as a character or as a plot element in the film. And he's mostly just there for tension and to be a hitman. Max von Sydow just chews up the scenery, and he's potentially more memorable than Robert Redford is in this film, and he's only in it for maybe a collective 10 minutes. The Darth Vader effect, as they say.
Oh, quick tangent. Speaking of Max von Sydow, one of the actors in the Mouth of Madness, which I watched recently, is the guy who played Vigo the Carpathian in Ghostbusters 2. which I've never seen Ghostbusters 2. Are you familiar with the character I'm referring to?
Vaguely. It's been a great many years since I've seen
Okay.
Ghostbusters 2.
Well,
I don't plan
I
on
learned
returning.
recently because he's some sort of European Austrian, maybe, I think.
Mhm.
But I was looking through the credits because I was just curious. But that guy, the guy who played Vigo the Carpathian, apparently his voice was very hard to understand. So Max von Sydow dubbed him over. So Max von Sydow dubbed a side character in Ghostbusters 2. There you go.
Huh. The more you know. That's a fun fact.
That's fun fact.
Speaking of first features, because I know you were doing you were watching some of directors' first features recently, preparing for your own first feature. Very exciting. This is a first feature which I remember fondly. Not the best, but it's pretty good. Mid-90s.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna rewatch it at some point.
Yeah. Does it have a commentary? I'd love to hear a commentary.
It does. Commentary with Jonah Hill and cinematographer
Nice.
Christopher Blavelt.
Second fun fact of the day. I was listening to a Safdie Brothers interview today from circa 2017 when Good Time was on the festival circuit. And they were talking about how they finally were able to get funding for their dream project, which was Uncut Gems, of course. And at the time in 2017, they were saying that, yeah, we finally get to make this movie. And they were talking about it. And it says it stars Jonah Hill. So I guess for a brief moment, Jonah Hill was going to be Howard Ratner. And I could see that. I think Adam Sandler gives one of the decade's best performances, but I could see a Jonah Hill Howard Ratner.
And you can see they did eventually go with unorthodox casting, but kind of like quirky. Like, there's not really B movies, but like Jonah Hill was in like low quality comedies, similar to
and Superbad,
but similar to Adam Sandler, who's had a few hits here and there, but it's mostly just kind of whatever. So it is, Jonah Hill is a similar vibe to Adam Sandler, but he's nowhere near as divisive a figure as Adam Sandler.
Very excited for his second film.
Yes, and lastly, this was only like $3. I got Under the Skin, which I've seen once before, quite a while ago. And as I was doing my kind of review of what critics were saying was the best of the last decade, this one came up a surprising amount. And
a lot of people love it.
I felt it was it might be time to take another look. And that is what I got in terms of Blu-rays. I also want to quickly share 2 screenplays I got at Bookman's.
Oh, wow.
Because they were also cheap, and it's good to read screenplays. I got Fargo,
pitch perfect
script. Great script. I can already tell it is slightly different than the film, which is interesting. Which makes it a more interesting read. No, it's more like stuff I think they cut out. Like there's
which is also interesting because they very rarely do that.
Yes, like there's a scene in the very beginning of Jerry checking in when he gets to Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Before he meets with Carl,
Peter
Carl
Stormare.
and Jerry. No, he is Jerry. Carl. Anyway, yes. And then I got one of my favorite movies, My Dinner with Andre, which...
Wow, I didn't realize there was a script.
What they did, and I really want to do this process at some point, in particular with you and Nick Johnson. I've said this before, is the process, how they made this is they had Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory. They just had conversations about life and about their careers and stuff like that over a period of like a month. And then they listened to the recordings of those conversations and condensed it into a 90.
Wow.
No, it's almost like 2 hour 45. It's like 100-minute script.
We should do an episode on My Dinner with Andre at some point.
We should. And
maybe we can do it after we finish. Because I know you've been watching the Trip movies recently. I think they're very similar vibes, although not as good.
Similar vibes. I almost want to say like I also get before trilogy vibes from the Trip series, except
I agree.
it's two middle-aged guys having a bromance and food.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I got. Quite a bit.
All right. So should we go do a very brief discussion on what we've been watching recently?
Very brief.
Yeah, we'll be brief. We have people on our way. I'll go first. I'll be, I'll just hit the highlights. I guess we could both talk about a movie we watched recently, and that is Steven Seagal's A Good Man.
This was my, I don't know about
No,
actually it's not. I take that back. This is not my first encounter with Steven Seagal. Yes. Hello, I'm going to send you the Zoom link in 1 second. We're just finishing up a quick discussion.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. Bye.
That was Nick. You'll so soon see.
I wasn't sure if we were going to have a guest or not, but we're having Nick to discuss.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Anyway.
So yeah, we watched A Good Man, Steven Seagal. It's fucking awful. But entertaining.
It was surprisingly competent. And I don't mean that as a compliment.
Yes.
But it was competent in a way I wasn't expecting a Steven Seagal movie to be.
Yes.
But bad. It's weird because you have to, when you're watching a bad movie and you expect a Steven Seagal movie to be a bad movie.
Yes.
You wouldn't want it any other way. But you want to like balance between incomprehensibility, which just isn't fun to watch, and funny stuff.
There's a story there. It's the execution that makes it very funny.
I'm surprised at like the balance between competency and awfulness that kind of lended itself and particularly highlighted Steven Seagal as a aging, slightly overweight man who tries to be an action hero, which I think the competency.
Does he try though? Does he really try?
Yeah. He wears clothes indoors and outdoors.
and during intercourse, he wears clothes.
He's just a funny man. Like I don't think there was a single good line delivery from him in the entire film, which means all of his line deliveries were great.
The man's wearing more layers than the movie has. But if you're looking to get into the Steven Seagal filmography, perfect place to start.
It really is.
I also watched.
I actually recommend it, like as a bad movie.
Yeah, it's a very good bad movie. It's a very good bad movie.
On Amazon.
I finally watched Die Hard. Never seen it. Avoided it for a very long time because it didn't look like my thing. I was wrong. It was very much my thing. Die Hard is incredible. It's a very fun, very entertaining, very a surprisingly clever movie. I feel like it really avoids a lot of the I don't want to say tropes, but every time you think you know where it's going, it doesn't. And I honestly think that, as far as I know, a lot of the other Die Hard movies don't really compare to the first one. And I think there's a lot of factors to it, but I think the biggest factor is that Alan Rickman is so good in this movie. He's so funny.
He's like a serious, dramatic version of Werner Herzog. Where I think just part of like his mannerisms and accent and all that kind of stuff lends to it. He can't possibly not be interesting on a certain level, but yes, I mean he is a good actor beyond just him.
Yeah, very good movie.
Oh yeah,
worth the hype.
Really good Steelbook Blu-ray.
That's wonderful.
It's got the lighter with the Nakatomi Plaza symbol on it at the back.
It's action movie. It's action cinema at its finest. On the other hand, I finally rewatched Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah.
Yes. There.
It is okay. I also watched The Dirty Dozen. Finally watched that. One of the movies I got from Amoeba. What?
Oh, so the viewers know we are. Maybe are we planning a
spotlight? Fuck it, I'll talk about it. I'll talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'll talk about. Hey, I'll defend it.
First ever split take spotlight episode where we just focus on a film we know we have a split take on and delve into that. So that could be fun. Might do it, might not.
Yeah, Raiders has been one of those movies that I've never been a fan of. I gave it a few years. I went into it really wanting to like it. Saw it in the theater. Didn't do it for me. I also watched 2 more real quick. I watched The Dirty Dozen. Is one of the movies I picked. Oh, that's another movie I picked up at Zia. Just completely, or Amoeba, and completely forgot to talk about. Dirty Dozen. I picked it up because it has John Cassavetes, who I love. It's got a really good cast. I didn't even realize until I started watching it. It's got Lee Marvin, Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson, John Cassavetes. It's got Donald Sutherland, a very young Donald Sutherland. It's basically about a movie about a military general in World War II, U.S. general who has to lead a group of 12 convicted criminals into what is essentially a suicide mission. It's very similar to The Great Escape, but there's no escape, obviously. It's just guys being dudes for 2 hours. It's very fun. Ends out of nowhere. It just kind of ends like a lot of 70s movies do, whatever. And finally, I watched George Romero's The Amusement Park, which you haven't heard of this? It was okay. So this is a movie that George Romero made in the late 70s, early 80s. He was contracted to make essentially a PSA movie about elder abuse. So he made this like 54-minute experimental movie about this old man who goes into this amusement park and is essentially abused by everyone there. It's obviously a big metaphor for elder abuse in general by society and how we sort of ignore them, cast them to the side, and don't let them in on a lot of stuff. It was a movie that George Romero made with the intention of this company using it as a PSA. They saw the movie, they thought it was way too fucked up, so they scrapped it. And it was found recently, and Shudder, the horror streaming service, which I recently became a member of, took it and premiered it on their service as a premiere, whatever, exclusive. And I watched it, and it's very, very good. I've only ever seen from George Romero Night of the Living Dead, but the premise sounded very interesting, and the history behind it sounded very interesting. It's a very it's kind of tough to watch. It's essentially just a movie about a kind old man who's being shit on by everybody. It's very frantic. It's very experimental. It's very surreal, nightmarish, and again, it's only 54 minutes. I definitely recommend it. Yeah.
Okay.
New release. One of the few new releases I've seen. What have you watched?
Go super quick. I watched The Trip to Italy and The Trip to Spain, which is, of course, both part of the Trip to series, starring Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. We've talked about this before. We both watched The Trip, the original, and then you watched
the first two.
The Trip to Italy. And so I don't know. I just got the hankering for journeying with Coogan and Brydon across European landscapes, eating food and making terrible jokes again and again and again. They are both. All 3 films are essentially the same thing, just recycled over and over, and somehow it manages to continue to be interesting. And I think in particular the Trip to Spain, it's not necessarily trafficking in any particularly deep ideas, but it does have a very interesting ending that kind of adds some like thematic oomph to the film.
Interesting.
Where I think perhaps the Trip to Italy lacked. Anyway, I'd recommend you continue watching the series because I know you haven't watched Trip to Spain. I will most certainly be watching A Trip to Greece, which is the last one. Just the latest one. The latest one. Yes, latest. Yes, so they were both great. In particular, there's a great scene. I don't know if you've ever seen the Monty Python sketch, not from one of the movies. It's a sketch from the show, the Spanish Inquisition sketch.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I think this is in the Spain one and not the yes.
I hope so.
Steve Coogan, they're in Spain and they're talking about the Spanish Inquisition. And so Steve Coogan starts to do an impression of the Spanish Inquisition scene and starts quoting the entire thing. And then they were also talking about Marlon Brando and a film that he filmed in Spain. And so Rob Brydon starts doing a Marlon Brando impression of the Spanish Inquisition scene from Monty Python. And it's absolutely silly, an intersection of two things I really love, and the fact that it's great. What else is there? I watched Another Round again, just another round of Another Round. Great movie, favorite one of last year. Still, as always, just as impactful.
Me too. Yeah.
Just as emotionally involving the second time, which I really wanted to figure out. That was the big question for me. And then I also rewatched the Irishman, which we have reviewed before on this podcast.
Wow. All of it.
All of it.
Second
yeah.
time seeing it?
Third. No,
third.
because I watched it twice in like 48 hours for the podcast previously. I just shared the link with Nick. The Irishman. It's great. I think I may bring it up a little bit in our Goodfellas conversation. But my opinion essentially probably hasn't changed much since our original discussion. It's great. It's fun. I really noticed this time, the age of the main three cast, in particular Robert De Niro. And I'm not talking about the CGI. I'm talking about the way he carries himself and his arms. You can tell he is an elderly man. And the thing that makes this charming is like, you know how like Citizen Kane and a bunch of other movies do this, where like a young person plays a older person. Mm-hmm. And then like when you're a child, you play as grown-ups and all that kind of stuff. Children do that often. And so this feels like the reverse of that, of older people returning to their childhood, cosplaying as young, hip gangsters and mobsters. And so it feels more like they're just having fun and telling a very interesting history lesson. Like it's not actual, some of it's made up, some of it's embellished upon, but it is history. Like I think there's a lot in there that people aren't familiar with. And I think The Irishman turned people on to that part of some very interesting stuff that went on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s with the Union and the mob and all that kind of stuff. So
I just want to say that in regards to this criticism, I feel like it's one of those things that you easily could have circumvented if you just like explained in the context of the story that Frank maybe doesn't move as quick because of injuries from the war. I feel like it's one of those things would have been so easy, but it doesn't bother me. I also rewatched The Irishman a few months ago, and I put it in like my top 3 Scorsese. I think 5 stars.
I think it might be one of my favorites.
It's very good.
For some reason, and we'll get to this in Goodfellas. I don't know why, but I like Scorsese's later, longer films as opposed to some of his earlier
films?
I know.
I'm shocked.
I know. I have stated before that The Wolf of Wall Street is one of my favorites, and The Irishman continues that trend.
The Wolf of Wall Street is one of my least favorites, which that should have been the split take. But
hey, I just ordered that Blu-ray because that is literally like $4 on Amazon, and I don't.
Yeah, I got it for like $6 at Barnes and Noble. It's very good,
very cheap. All right, Nick has been hanging out, as you could probably already tell. He's been on the podcast before, of course. Welcome, Nick. We are here to talk about Bo.
Can you hear us, Nick?
Burnham.
Bosef Burnham.
Herm. His new Netflix special thing, Inside. So much to say.
I see you don't hear you.
Can we hear you, Nick? Are you going to record on your end? I will. He's also kind of. He's starting recording. So I will just do a quick summary until Nick gives me the signal that he's recording. Inside is a project that Bo has been working on for the past year in quarantine, filmed it all in one room of his house by himself, directed, written, all that kind of stuff. It is a musical comedy special thing.
It's like a one-man show type deal.
Yeah, a one-man show. It defies easy categorization. I think it checks a bunch of different boxes. Which is partially what makes it so very special. And Spoiler alert, this is going to be half an hour or more of us just gushing about it. So what did we think of Inside?
Well, also
and
I
whatever
want
you
to
say,
just go ahead and say that the Safdie brothers themselves have classified this as a movie, so I consider it a movie.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I was not sure if we want to have that conversation, but this is like 100%. I almost think that Netflix calling it a comedy special, even Bo in Inside says special, calls it a special, whatever that means. But this is a movie.
Yeah,
plain and
got a
simple.
lot of cinematic elements. Bo is a actual film director,
and
plays with the form a lot.
And he has now added to his filmography his best film.
Yeah,
it's better. It's better than 8th Grade.
It is.
8th Grade. Well, that's nothing on 8th Grade. It's just
too.
Yeah. I did in slight preparation. I did watch a little bit of Make Happy, but yeah.
So it's interesting because I've been a fan of Bo Burnham for 10 years at this point.
And I have, for context, I have not. Like I've seen one or two YouTube videos, and that's it. Like I remember
back in the day in high school when his YouTube videos started getting big. I watched them. I thought they were funny. I remember going out of my way to DVR his Comedy Central Presents special because I thought he was hilarious. Just for a brief background, Bo Burnham's a musical comedian. He got big on YouTube. His first 2 specials, which are his Comedy Central thing and Words, are very much in the typical vein of musical comedy. It's very clever though. If you go back and watch a lot of those old songs, he's just absolutely insane with his wordplay and his jokes. From 2013 on, he had a special called What? After that, he had a special called Make Happy. Those two were a lot more similar to Inside, where you still had the foundation of musical comedy, but he took a lot of very creative and introspective deviations into his own mind, into a lot of really complicated subject matter. And then 2016 was his last outing, which was Make Happy. And at the end of that, similarly to how the end of Inside happens, it concluded with a skit of him going inside and locking the door, whatever, because at that point he had said that he was done performing. I honestly, because 2 years after Make Happy, we got 8th Grade, I was not expecting another Bo Burnham special. I thought he was legitimately done. He seemed to be moving on to film directing stuff. I was very surprised when he announced a new one. Then the more and more I looked at it, I thought, okay, this feels like a very natural progression, because a huge part of why he didn't do those specials anymore was because he had a lot of nervous breakdowns, panic attacks on stage, because as we will discuss, his comedy is so precise and constructed that if you're not 100% while you're in that arena, you're gonna fuck up and it's gonna ruin everyone's night. So I wasn't expecting anything, but yeah, this feels like a very natural progression. It feels like a lot of what he's done as a filmmaker combined with the traditional foundation of a comedy special, but it's obviously so much more. And yeah, tell me what you guys thought. It's very interesting to me that you two.
Hi, I'm recording now.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted
this is
to
the first
say,
time that
hi,
people
Nick.
would have heard my voice. Yes.
Hello, Naj.
Hello, Naj. Welcome to the podcast again. Good time.
Yes.
You are the first guest to appear on the podcast now that we are doing live Zoom recordings of this and doing video on YouTube. So all that kind of good stuff.
Special.
Yeah, dude, this is pretty based.
Yeah, welcome, Nick. If you could,
You can see my my arcade stick in the background.
It's pretty
Oh
good.
my
That's
gosh.
badass. You playing Tekken? Playing Guilty Gear?
Guilty Gear, dude. It's so sick. Anyways.
If you could do a quick rundown of your history with watching Bo's comedy stuff, and then maybe kick off general thoughts on the special.
Well, I have probably the polar opposite of Chandler's history with Bo Burnham. Up until watching this, I was, viciously indifferent about Bo Burnham. I really didn't like anything he put out. I thought I've always found comedy music kind of obnoxious, except for Weird Al. I think Weird Al's the only one that's ever done it effectively. I think everything else I'd
Not
ever
even
seen.
The Lonely Island?
No, I hate Dog, especially Lonely Island. I hate it.
Have
I mean, it was
either of
funny in like
you-
4th grade.
Have either of you
I'm
heard
25,
of
man. I need
Matt?
concepts. What's up?
There is a guy from the 50s and 60s, Tom Lehrer. This is like super. This is like the
Tom
origin
Lehrer.
of comedy. The origin of comedy music. Like if you wanted to draw like Bo Burnham to, he's probably not even inspired. It's so like obscure a reference, but he's like the first person I can really think of who ever did like performing comedy music. And on YouTube, I think there's a couple, The Masochism Tango and Poisoning Pigeons in the Park. You know, classic
Classic
50s tracks. So yes, I
Very
think he
interesting.
does comedy music well for, it's very much of its time, but it's interesting little time capsule. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
A little comparison piece. So yeah, I mean, I really, from what I have seen of Bo Burnham, I thought it was like, okay, clever, not really my thing. The one thing I liked specifically was the end of one of his previous specials was like a Kanye thing.
Yeah.
And then I think I connected to that, like looking back at it now, I think I connected to it a lot more because it was really personal and it like got really raw, and that was one of the only times he had really done that, apparently, from what I know now. But and then I watched Inside on a complete whim.
You were the first one of us to watch it?
No, I watched it before him.
Did
I
you?
think Chandler watched it before
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah, I kept hearing good things. Everyone that watched it said it was amazing.
It was top on Letterboxd like immediately, which I thought was interesting. 'Cause his
Yeah, it
other
was
stuff
crazy.
didn't.
The like
And I watched it on a
top
whim and I
top?
loved it. Obviously,
it was on the top
As
Letterboxd?
in like when you log in a Letterboxd, the homepage it says like popular this week.
Ah,
Like immediately it was there. I'm sure it's in the top 250 now. 'cause
It
it's-
is.
on
I checked.
Letterboxd. It's
Yeah.
the 5s are stacked to the brim, and there's
Yeah.
like
The-
nothing else. It's insane.
if I remember, I looked at it like a week ago because I was wondering, because actually, I don't know if you've checked the Letterboxd top 250, like the
Narrative features or
general list, not the
general?
feature, just the general. It's got some shuffling has been going on that list, which is interesting.
Has Cowboy Bebop been dethroned?
Ooh,
Yes.
Has it?
that's
Well,
tough.
it's one of those things where like that is the list where like it doesn't matter how many votes you have. It could be like 5 votes, and if they're all 5 stars, so there's some wonky
Yeah.
things on there that get up to the top. But anyway, I think Inside is within like the top 110. I could say
Yeah.
last time. I checked.
Dang. Okay, that makes sense.
Going dummy.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
And yet somehow
yeah.
I feel like more people need to be aware of it.
My mom watched it and didn't give me a reaction, so I don't know what that means. Perhaps she may have not finished it. That would be
I
the worst thing.
watched
That'd be the worst
this
thing.
with 2 of my Tucson friends, friend Alana and my other friend, other Jacob. They had very interesting reactions, which my friend Alana, she is a big fan of Bose and very familiar, and obviously she loved it. And then my friend other Jacob didn't know, like I think literally nothing, had never seen any content from him before.
Wow.
And he is also not on the political side that Bo clearly comes down on in the
Yes,
special. And so that was a turnoff for him, and he left halfway through. Interesting reaction. I disagree.
Interesting.
And I
reaction.
think if you make it to the end, there is enough to be worthwhile, especially if you're our age. And I'd be curious to see more like older people's reaction, but it's very much something that is targeted at 30, 35 numbers.
Boomers.
Yeah.
Oh, if anything, I feel it appeals more towards like Zoomers than
No,
our age.
Yeah.
definitely to our age. I mean,
I think so.
I think he's aiming at specifically at Zoomers, but it is
18
very
to
much
30, perhaps.
I mean, it's coming from his perspective. And
30.
his perspective is essentially just a few years
Millennial.
older than
Yeah,
ours, like
he's
5 years older. Yeah, and
4 from
part
now.
in the very famous. It's on YouTube. They released the "Welcome to the Internet" track, and in that track, when the song kind of gets low, he says, "It didn't used to always be like this." Right before the towers fell, insinuating that he's addressing the song
99.
to Zoomers who don't remember that. But we
Yeah.
are just on the cusp of not remembering and remembering that incident.
5. Yeah, that was 5.
So-
That's like my first conscious memory.
Yeah, it's same. So we're like right on that cusp of like not quite who he's exactly addressing in a lot of the songs, but also very much someone
we're in
who.
between. We've always been on the brink of being Zoomers.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a Coomer, though, for sure. So
I'm an optimistic doomer.
So, long story short, I've seen this about 4 times now, and I've listened to the album. I've lost count how many times.
I need to stop listening to the album. I
really need to stop.
I don't want this to become one of those things where I listen to it so much that I can't. I physically become sick sometimes after listening to a song too much, and I don't want to ruin inside like that. I can't. It would break my heart.
But the thing about it is that unlike a lot of stuff where I similarly listen in that pattern, inside I feel every time I listen to it, I'm unearthing more. Because lyrically, I think this is his best yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so
this whole
strong lyrically.
It's so like this whole special. It's essentially just a string of various skits and songs with some really impressive visuals behind it. But what I appreciate most about this is that it's very stream of consciousness,
Yes.
but it's also very constructed. I think it's basically just a trip inside of his mind, all of his fears, his anxieties, his overall pessimism, I feel, but it really, I think, encapsulates a lot of what people are feeling, not just, throughout the pandemic, but just in general, in a way that I feel no one has really captured like exactly how I feel on a lot of things. But it's also open-ended to a point where like I'm still on the fence on whether or not this is a hopeful or a pessimistic project. And it's been very interesting to see people's different like interpretations of it all. You've seen it 4 times, Nick. How many times have you seen it, Jacob?
I'm gonna say about like 2.5 times.
Yeah, I've still only seen it the once.
I downloaded it last night on Netflix, so I've been kind of just watching bits and pieces over the past 24 hours.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's so much it's so dense, not even just musically, lyrically,
Thematically,
the
it's
visuals,
very dense.
Yeah, the visuals too. I mean, like it looks amazing. It's incredible what he managed to do by himself. I don't know how by himself this is. I would trust that he is mostly working alone. But
if you look at the credits,
yeah,
there are people obviously helping him, and it's mostly just managerial stuff, post stuff, producers, color. I think the only thing you could really point to that someone other than Bo had a creative mind going on was the coloring of the footage. And even then, that's not all that much.
They just do what Bo tells them to do too.
Right.
And, yeah.
So I think we have to take him at his word, and I think it's entirely possible and plausible that he did everything, essentially, with regards to pre-production and production.
But Bo is a pretty genuine guy. I feel like if there were a lot more people helping him, he'd be a lot more vocal about it. I'm sure something like this is very difficult to do all by yourself. But yeah, a huge part of this, like what I think is interesting, is that it's not only like examining the world at large at the moment, but it's also very self-reflective, self-examining in a literal way as well. Because there's a lot of this where Bo is just watching himself There's the hilarious skit of him reacting to himself.
That's amazing.
There is the skit where he's playing a Twitch stream of himself. He's playing a video game based on his life. There's the part where he is being projected onto himself.
I was gonna say that's probably one of the most powerful moments of the whole thing. It's him clearly later in the recording process. He's longer beard and longer hair, and he's projecting on top of himself his reflections of suicide and how society kind of reacts to someone that is suicidal. And it's like that when I first saw that, I was like, wow, whoa.
The thing that's
tough.
really struck me over the listening to the album in order and also watching it a few times is that, I mean, we've made the claim that it's a very well constructed piece, and I think that goes beyond just the kind of moment by moment basis, the editing and the technical side. But since we are making the claim that it is a film, I think there is a genuine narrative to the whole thing, and I think that's twofold. One, obviously, there's like this subtle meta narrative of him making the film within the thing, because it starts with the second sequence is him playing with lights and getting things set up, and then throughout the course of the film, he kind of like checks in. You get his birthday, so like there's a sense of progression of time, and at the very end, he's like, "I'm done," and he gets the existential dread of coming to terms with finishing a project that you've given so much to, and so there's a narrative there. A meta narrative there. And then furthermore, what I found very interesting is that there is a kind of narrative going on with the themes of the special, in that it starts very much about the audience. It starts addressing the audience and kind of like big societal things of comedy, making jokes during while everything's going on. How the
front
world
half
works
is a lot funnier.
Stuff like white women's Instagram.
The first half is also a lot more standard to what you would expect like a Bo Burnham product to be, as opposed to the latter half being a lot more raw.
But on subsequent viewings, it is equally as profound. I don't want to make it seem pretentious,
but it's profound. But the first half is more. The songs are more front loaded with their comedy elements, whereas the introspection is a little more hidden. Whereas the deeper you go, it like at a certain point, it's like it's silliness with some poignancy, but towards the end, it is just it like so many artists that I love, musical artists, stuff like Jeff Rosenstock, Andrew Jackson Jihad. And the reason why I love them is because they can have such silly and witty lyrics, but also within the like a very well constructed song that never lets the wittiness of it overtake it and turn it into a comedy song. Like a lot of those like second half of the special songs are just so profound and not silly in the way that the first few are.
Yes.
Well, yes. And honestly, on subsequent viewings, it becomes less silly. Even the silly stuff. Like I don't think I laughed. Partially this is because I was watching the first time I watched it, I was watching with people. I haven't laughed. I find it mildly amusing sometimes, but I think for the most part, every single song, even the silly, quote unquote, silly ones, are very like there's a point. He is saying something in every single song, and the organization of the content is about everyone. It starts out about everyone's interaction during the pandemic with like texting and Instagram, how the world works, Jeff Bezos, and then as it's going on, like we said, he's getting more introspective and making it more personal. So it's like kind of like a funnel going down all the way to one of the most emotionally impactful and relatable things I've ever seen in my entire life. I cannot state that enough. All Eyes on Me. It's kind of like the emotional climax of the whole thing, and then kind of goes back to a summary at the end of the whole thing with Goodbye, which
that's interesting to me. Because it wasn't until recently that I realized that everybody was in love with that song. And I think that song's okay. For me, what you're talking about, like the emotional high, for me that was Funny Feeling.
Same.
Which is right.
I agree with Chandler.
It's right around
okay.
the same time.
No. We're not disagreeing here. Essentially,
Yeah.
I'm perhaps being a bit more granular, but those two are the climax of the film. They're right next to each other. But that Funny Feeling is like this nice, great, like it's a great song in and of its own right. It's probably just the best song of the special, but All Eyes on Me was the most resonant one for me for reasons we can get into, but I don't need to at the moment. Anyway, I relate incredibly to what Bo Burnham is sharing and expressing here. And it's amazing that this day and age that someone is putting that out there. Like this seems like something new. Like we haven't seen something quite this so personal in kind of like, I don't want to be as grand saying like the history of cinema, but there are things that like, there are movies that like will you can connect to bits and pieces here, and you can see the director put a little bit of himself here. This is just completely Bo Burnham. This is so vulnerable and sharing and everything. It's astounding.
Yeah. Another thing too is that, in relation to the passage of time, obviously this was filmed over the course of a year, and you can tell that by basically just his appearance. But I think there's so many things within the film itself that correlate to what I feel a lot of people are feeling through this last year. As far as themes go, I feel like as the film goes along, it becomes much more dense and much more obsessed with like these sort of these analyses of the world and why it's not working. There's this, like, I feel like over this past year, a lot of people have just realized how fucked everything has always been. The pandemic has made these problems a lot more apparent.
Yes.
Specifically how like driven our entire society is by
money and greed,
money and stuff like that. And so you have things like, the Bezos songs, which are really funny.
Congratulations.
He rhymes Buffett with
Zuckerberg can fucking suck it.
Suck it.
That's
a slick
fuck
line
their
right
wives,
there.
Drink their blood. Come on, Jeff, get them.
But it's like one of those things where, towards the beginning of the pandemic, you have songs like the Bezos songs, or you have That's How the World Works, where, I think at that point, that must have been like the summer, or really, post George Floyd type stuff, where
people are still having fun, kind of interacting, like Amazon. We can get stuff on Amazon still, all that kind of stuff.
But that cynicism is there. It's approaching. The cynicism.
And there's like little foreshadowings of the darker topics that arrive later.
It's playful. Like That's How the World Works. I feel like a lot of stuff that Sacco says are things that people became hyper aware of.
I was gonna make this joke. You just reminded me.
In the pandemic, but towards the end, like specifically that Funny Feeling, like it's not playful anymore. Like a lot of the lyrics in that Funny Feeling are just fucking apocalyptic. And I feel like with the amount of time that people have had to like just reflect on the world, where they can just sit back and watch it from the comfort of their own home, like specifically things like All Eyes on Me, That's How the World, that Funny Feeling, Welcome to the Internet.
Welcome to the Internet is especially dark too if you go back through it.
Yeah.
This has inspired this realization,
multiple existential crises in me, and especially like this morning. Too early. I got to work really early this morning. For some reason, I felt the need to put on That Funny Feeling while I was working. That was the wrong choice. That was not helpful for productivity. or my my positive mental health. But yeah. In a good way.
What were you gonna do? Yeah.
I like.
So
I
what's
like
your
his,
sock joke?
I like. Oh, I don't know. I was just gonna have it on my hand.
Okay.
I was gonna.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. That was really the joke.
Maybe your sock puppet's now giving the criticism of based criticism of
pedophilic corporate elite.
Let's have.
I was gonna say I really appreciate the little foreshadows. I don't mean to go back to this, but the little foreshadows he hides throughout the song. Because I've been listening to the song so much, I've been like really able to dig through the lyrics at this point. And I think like every single song, like it even starts out as simple as like in comedy, right at the end he says, you know, I've been not doing what he says something along the line. I'm paraphrasing. I've been not doing well, but now I'm back doing comedy. And he just kind of like slides it in there and he says it positively, but you're kind of like, oh, wait a second. He hasn't been doing well. He didn't really reference that yet. And, you know, as the songs go on, he slides little lyrics in there, here and there. And, you know, I think where it really like the shift really happens from social commentary that's kind of, still has the humor in it to the dark is like the 30. I think it's like right when he turns 30 with the clock part where it's just like him for a minute sitting there in silence. I think it's that moment where the whole shift. That's kind of like the the lady ringing the doorbell moment.
And I'm not even 30 and I still get existential crises every time my birthday rolls around. My birthday is not a good mental health time, unfortunately.
You know, it's weird. I just had my birthday the other day and it's always the night before. The night before, I'm like, God, like the other day I was like, this is my last night of being 25. Holy shit. And then I wake up and I'm 26. I'm like, I'm 26. I'm still only 26. I got a year left of being 26 and then I have a year left of being 27. Like, yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine like that because 30 is a big number.
That's a big number.
It's a number where people, I feel, wrongly feel that they're getting old.
Their child. Oh, I don't think it's wrongly. I think there's some good reason. They probably don't need to feel it as much as they do. Yeah. But that's obviously since it's a nice round whole number. You're done. You're 10 years past around college, and you're starting to feel like, settling in that you are officially an adult and no longer
I'm a workhorse
part of
in the
capitalist
youngs, society. Yes.
The youths.
Yeah, and so I can't imagine that, you know, feels nice. But again, going off of like the progression, I feel like this thing also really captures, like you can tell that, you know, the songs represent his sort of like bursts of creativity that I'm sure he has just staying in bed all day, whatever, or staying inside all day. But it also mirrors his like sort of depressive episodes because you have the high highs of bursts of creativities, but you also have the low lows where he's, you know, there's no comedy or music to mask what he's saying. These are the sections that are very much deconstructing the filmmaking process. This is where you see all the shit that's on the ground. This is where you really feel those lows, but I feel, again, it really mirrors what I assume a lot of people felt over this past year. Levels.
One of the ones I really like is the one right after White Woman's Instagram, where it's just like a shot of him just like rewatching it. And he's just kind of like sitting in a curled ball and the whole room's dark and you just see him on like the edge of the frame. And I think that's one of like the first like really, really reflective moments. And he doesn't even really say anything, but I really like appreciated that moment.
Yeah. What really makes it like a cinematic special are those little, like beyond just the songs and stuff like that. Like if it was just these songs, it would probably feel less like a movie than it actually does. But the fact is, like, he's inserting these moments of him just talking and sharing, and sometimes it's just shots in between of, there's one where he's like lying in bed, and there's usually interesting lighting going on with that, and the shots, independent of the songs or any of the content, often have meaning in and of themselves that add on to what he's trying to say. There's this great one, I don't remember which song or what, it's in the beginning, where he's lying on the floor, head on a pillow, talking to us, and like there's all the wires and stuff around him, and it almost like, it felt like his, like the jumbled mess of his brain, because he was like in the corner, and it felt like this was like all emanating from that.
That was a great shot as well. And he's kind of reflecting on if social media was a good idea, if, you know, allowing children to use social media is a good idea.
Yeah.
And then he ends it. He ends that by
all of our worth being based on, you know, wealth, a good idea.
He ends that by very abruptly saying, "I'm horny." Cut to sexting.
And cut to sexting. My least favorite song.
Oh.
What's interesting,
well, I suppose there has to be
to
one.
me, is that if you look I looked in Bo Burnham's Wikipedia, and he, there's like a section for influences because he talks about who he influenced him, and if you look at the influence section, it's like 99% of what he lists are comedians, just various comedians, comedic actors, stand-up comedians, and he lists one filmmaker of those bunch, and that filmmaker is John Cassavetes, which I find very interesting because a lot of those sections remind me of like Cassavetes, and specifically the ending. The ending, I'd love to like look to see if this, this is the case, but the ending to this is very, very similar to the ending of the John Cassavetes film Love Streams, which is I think my favorite.
I was making
also
mental connections to Opening Night.
No, I wouldn't bring up Opening Night in this podcast. But the ending to Love Streams is also, it's like it's the most surreal John Cassavetes has ever gotten. It feels completely out of left field for him, but it's very similar in that it's a spotlight. It's almost Lynchian. That final
it
shot
is kind
of
of
him
Lynchian.
trying to get back into the house or whatever. Then you have the shot of him watching him trying to get into the house. All of these introspection things, just really they resonate more than anything else, I think. Like that shot of him just watching himself perform as like a 16-year-old, especially since it comes after him turning 30.
And that it's followed by the song of him reflecting on how he's made mistakes as a youth. So it's like,
yes, I will say this though. There are a few of these performance sections that just don't. Sometimes it makes me cringe. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes. No. I'm gonna agree with you and echo you there. And the thing is I upon a second viewing, I bumped it up to 5 stars, and I think it's the case that it's so damn creative and well put together.
yes,
That even though there are parts that I don't think work, these are like small moments, interconnecting moments that are not necessarily harmful to the overall narrative and all that kind of stuff. And so really, I don't care. After my second viewing, it's just
what part specifically are you referencing, Chandler?
For me, okay, so there's that one part where the camera is way in the back, hidden amongst the sea of filmmaking equipment, and it's Bo like trying to get through a line. He gets frustrated and he has a little anger outburst. I'm just watching that and I'm like, okay, relax.
So, okay, sometimes
it's a very convincing.
It seems like it can be a bit much sometimes. That one works for me in terms of like,
I was gonna say,
there's a lot of performance stuff. There is, however, this is like the minor, how minor my complaints are. My specific thing is once or twice within the special, he talks about very explicitly killing himself. And it feels sometimes like it's too abrupt and perhaps not as clever and as introspective as the rest of it. Like I understand, like it's suicide and there's something abrupt and something terrible about that, but at the same time, like it takes me out. I'm like, I'm cringing and I'm like, this might
like we talked about
must be hard. Like if someone is actually suicidal watching this, like there's parts of me who is like projecting, like, could you say something else here? Like it ends, I'm turning 30 with like, I'll kill myself in 10 years. Like you could leave that out. I don't think the song actually needs that. And you still have the same content. It doesn't rhyme with anything later in the special. I'm just cringing at that.
Yeah.
It gets a little too like close to the void for me.
He's always had a dark edge to his comedies. So part of like those kind of things make me feel like, okay, this is him sort of living up to those expectations. I don't know, like, especially in the beginning when he's talking about how like he's doing this special because it's gonna, gets his mind off putting his like a gun to his head. At that point, I'm just like, okay.
Well, he
says he hopes the special helps you distract in the way that he has to have been distracted. And he says, put a bullet in my head with a gun.
And the way he says that, like he emphasizes it 3 different times. That also like it made me cringe. Like I'm fine with references to direct references of like saying, "Oh, I'm feeling suicidal." That's fine. But it just seems like
contrived.
A bullet in my head with a gun. Say a bullet in my head. Move on. It's just anyway.
Yeah.
I felt with that line he was kind of leaning into like the awkward. Don't know
Yes,
how
I
to.
think
I feel like he was leaning into that with that line specifically. But I was gonna say the reason I asked Chandler what lines he was referencing specifically is because I cringed at not at the same reason you guys were. I thought those were fine, admittedly, but the moments I cringed were where he would like become meta about the filmmaking. Like right after the line you're talking about, he starts going, "The transitions in this comedy special,"
Yeah.
and then he cuts.
that.
And I'm like,
I
that
love
was
that.
kind of cringe. No,
What are you talking about? That's
I
good.
like on the third watch, you're just like, okay, dude, like we get it. You know how to make films. We understand.
It's funny.
That kind of cut is very much a modern YouTube style edit.
Yes.
Which is
A lot of the I was going to reference
it is a
to-
special about that kind of stuff and emulating the style of Instagram or Let's Plays or reaction. So that feels like a reflection of real life content that fits. For me.
There's a similar joke in Make Happy where he's on stage talking about like what a continuity error is, and he's explaining the joke, and it's one of those jokes where it's not for the audience, because in the middle of him explaining what a continuity error is, like literally mid-word, it cuts to him performing the same exact joke at a different night, and he's wearing like a completely different outfit. So he's done shit like that before, and I agree, like that moment almost made me cringe, but it was so minor that whatever. Because the thing is, I see a lot of people who don't like this because of those moments, and I can understand some of them definitely teeter the line on being constructed, but what saves it for me in general, like what makes those problems so minor, is because those, like, while at times the execution, the performance can feel a little contrived and constructed, I do feel that it comes from a very genuine place.
Yes.
Like the whole thing is completely genuine. Bo's like personality or his cultural icon status. Like if you go through his history, he's always been like very secluded, secretive. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't tweet much. So he, like, even though, you know, it could seem like, oh, I'm sad, look at me, he doesn't act like that outside of these specials. So I feel like these are like moments where he can be completely true and honest, and even if it doesn't exactly resonate, it still feels real, and that's what I think is so compelling about it.
And there's a very interesting dramatic irony that I think not everyone picks up on the whole special, and I think it's one of like something I've picked up on specifically. Here's the specific example of FaceTime with my mom, I think has a direct correlation later on in the special to All Eyes on Me, ironically enough. And there's a great moment that a lot of people talk about in White Woman's Instagram, where the aspect ratio goes from 1:1, which is the Instagram, and it goes out. And this is a moment when he is the white woman, the titular white woman, is expressing her thoughts about her parents who are gone, and kind of being quote unquote genuine for a moment. And a lot of people think like this is a humanizing moment of like a lot of Instagram, social media are about these kind of like surface level sharing things of golden retriever in a coffee cup, all these kinds of things that he's listing out in the song.
Fake
and
realities, if you will.
Right.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, and in this particular moment, this person, whoever is Bo Burnham's
The titular
white woman alter ego, shares something genuine on Instagram. There's an interesting dramatic irony there, where like on one hand, it's a humanizing moment of where like people who post this superficial stuff, they have real lives, real issues, and it's not about like we tend to judge them based upon they're posting superficial things, and then we're judging them based on the superficial things they're posting, when really that's not a reflection of reality whatsoever. The irony here, and that's like what a lot of people are picking up on in that song, and I think that's correct. The irony here, of course, is that this white woman is still posting on Instagram memories and stuff about her parents and very kind of personal stuff. And the I think Bo is specifically getting at you're kind of like selling your emotional problems and your personal problems and putting them out there on social media as a way to get attention, yada, yada, yada. There's still something superficial about it, still something performative about it. And I think that's reiterated later on. And this again goes back to the structure of the whole thing where it goes down, it gets more about the personal later on, is that when it gets to All Eyes on Me, that song, and I think he's also doing the same thing and commenting explicitly about that himself, of where this entire special is him expressing himself in a very personal way, but he's also making money off of it, and it's also a special, and there's also something superficial about it, and it is performative. Like we don't know where the performance stops and starts. Like how much is real, how much is genuine. You talked about how it feels genuine, and it does, and it probably is. But there is something you're not, like, you can't quite be sure. And there's just something like the performative nature of All Eyes on Me, of like the clapping, especially and near the end where he goes outside and there's like a crowd there and he tries to get back inside, and like fleeing the watchful eyes of people and sharing everything just being out on a stage these days of just you're expected to share all about yourself and be personal and all that kind of stuff, and the harmful nature of being so open in kind of the superficiality of the platforms and then the kind of superficialness that they promote.
And I think like how I kind of reflected on All Eyes on Me though was, I feel
that's
like it's
one
kind
reading. It's not the main reading.
Yeah.
It's like the if there is an arc, if there is a character that, you know, is going through an arc, this would be, you know, I don't write scripts, but this would be the epilogue of the character perhaps. It's kind of like that moment where he's admitting, you know, get your fucking hands up, get out of your seat, all eyes on me, like I want the attention, I want a crowd, I want to be able to perform. However, it's still going to be a journey to get there, because once you're standing up, you got to put your hands back down and pray for me, because, you know, I want to perform, I want to be able to do this, but I'm still having this crisis and these anxieties, but, you know, like I'm going to fight through it almost. And it's kind of how I like reflected on that song. So it's kind of like a closing moment for the character, and then, you know, the next song is that goodbye to the project,
which is great.
kind of.
I'm a sucker for any sort of closing song that incorporates melodies, reprises them. That always makes me.
Oh, in the
Oh,
reprisal,
shit.
They do it a lot in
the
Goodbye.
reprisal.
You're really
of,
joking at
Look
a
Who's
time
Inside.
like this.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Look Who's Inside again with the compressed lyrics. I shit and come every time.
Look
I
who's inside.
simultaneously shit and ejaculate every time I hear it.
I farted.
Ditto.
I farted.
Ditto.
There was a fart. well,
Look who's
It kind of sounds like
inside
it reminds me of like a weird Yeezus thing. So a lot of what Bo does with his production reminds me of Kanye a lot.
I love, so when I Look Who's Inside again, went out to look for a reason to hide again.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
It's great.
Not just great, like that.
Well, look.
Yes,
It's the
depression.
exact,
I relate,
it is
unfortunately.
it is a perfect 2-sentence description of anxiety. It's all you need to hear. It perfectly summarizes thematically the piece, is those two, and I think that's why he ends it with that little, is that a couplet?
Yeah.
Whatever the 4 lines are, he ends it with that pretty much as well. So
There was some question earlier of like whether this is a what's the, optimistic or pessimistic ultimately, and I'm gonna kind of, I don't know, I really don't, because I think it's so incredibly pessimistic, but I also feel like there's why would he put something out so dark and pessimistic if not to try
I think
and
it is optimistic.
express. It is. Well, I'm saying like you could go either way, and I think it's depending on how you want to read this. But for me, an interesting line in, I think, All Eyes on Me, is he. Let me try to remember it real quick.
What do you need?
He's
the
talking.
lyrics?
He's no. So he's sharing. it's interesting how like when I'm listening to the music and then I press pause and then like I'm going over the lyrics in my head, I can easily like remember all of them. And then as soon as I try to remember with you guys, I'm like, lyrics? What are those? No, but at the end he's talking about how like he's ready to re-enter the world, and he's been working on his mental health, and there's all he's getting better. Positive
you say
stuff.
The ocean's
And
rising
then-
like I give a shit. You say
and
the
then
whole world's ending.
The funniest thing happened, i.e. the pandemic.
Yes.
And I think Bo and I are very much on the same page in that there's always going to be a reason to be depressed. There's always going to be something like the cyclical nature of you might be
Always
ready,
going to
but
be
the
a
world
reason to
might
be
not be ready.
anxious. There's always
The
going to be
world-
something to be worried about.
There's always the world might be at you. You might be at yourself, and it's just that for me. Like some people that might be incredibly pessimistic, but that's optimistic. That like you,
Well,
It's comforting.
yeah.
I think I see it as optimistic because I think the final reflection on a lot of those thematic things he introduces, like greed and all the issues we're being faced with in Civil War and all that. I think he reflects on that in Funny Feeling. If All Eyes on Me is kind of his reflection of himself, Funny Feeling would be like that reflection on the themes, and it ends with the last part is hey, what can I say, we were overdue, but it'll be over soon, you wait. And it kind of like repeats, and it's kind of like it like slowly echoes and it like fades out. So I see the lyrics as almost optimistic, but then the way he kind of ends the song where it kind of peters out and slowly fades to black, it's almost like he's like repeating that to him. It's like he's saying it to himself and he has to keep repeating it. It's almost like he doesn't believe it himself. So that's like another one of those weird moments where I feel like overall, with the way the place it ends in, I feel like it is optimistic.
Well,
But
I mean,
I
he
think
ends-
the themes are obviously very pessimistic, especially the puppet song.
he ends by smiling.
Yeah, but
Well,
he
the thing with
smiles.
the
He
smile
smiles at
is-
the audience laughing at him.
Okay.
Yes, but I can't help but I don't know exactly what he's getting at, but I can't help but interpret that as some kind of acceptance of the meaninglessness, the cyclical nature of all that kind of whatever.
He's struggling. He's having that situation with himself, but he still finds solace in knowing that he can still make people laugh.
and
at the
a lot
end,
of it's about self-awareness. I think a lot of what Bo is getting at, where a lot of maybe his anxiety is coming from, is the self-awareness, and this part of this comes like problematic. I don't think we've mentioned that song yet.
That's one of my
like
favorites.
being aware of your own issues, your own problems within a social context, and then within your own like performative context, and that the issue where a lot of this anxiety comes from on like social media and all that kind of stuff is being aware of yourself too much, and that the only solution is to just be okay with that eventually. Like it's difficult. I'm not sure if I can explain it well right now, but that's
my interpretation.
Of what?
The whole thing.
Oh,
I
well,
lean
the-
more towards optimism this special, because I feel like a lot of the more negative, a lot of the more cynical moments of this are more reflective, not necessarily of his worldview, but are reflective in what I interpret to be the representation of his depressive episodes, where he gets in those depressive episodes. Sometimes his creativity spikes. When his creativity spikes in a depressive episode, he's going to lean towards the more pessimistic stuff. But then, like, the fact that it doesn't end on Funny Feeling, if it ended on Funny Feeling, that feels like a very somber note. That's his final message. The fact that it goes to All Eyes on Me, and the fact that at the end, what I see that final scene is him looking at that struggle, that scene of him trying to get out, him laughing at it, realizing, my interpretation is that he realizes, oh, that was nothing. Like, I was freaking out over nothing. In retrospect, I had nothing to worry about. It's sort of, he laughs at or with himself, I guess, with the audience, with himself. I'm not sure. To me, it just feels like it. In retrospect, he found that he was in no real danger. He was freaking out over nothing, and maybe that's sort of his he's suggesting that a lot of these anxieties are mostly in his head. I don't know.
Well, you could also say like the imagery of him trying to go back inside after emerging and having the crowd there and not being able to go back inside is partially just saying that, you know, even though he quit comedy and couldn't be in front of an audience, there's always an audience in 21st century life, and you just can't escape it. And either you laugh at the tragedy of the situation, you just accept that. Just like, no, hey, I can't go back inside again. I want to.
Yeah, I literally can't.
Just can't.
Good.
Come out with your hands up. We've got you surrounded. And then when he gets out there, it's almost like there's a helicopter spotlight like on him at the door.
Back in the point I was making earlier, one of the lines, I think there's quite a few that mention like the cyclical nature of there's always going to be more problems, is it's almost over. It's just begun. It's very cathartic, like in a deeply melancholic and sad way, I get, but also very like I watch it and it feels like I'm purging something inside of me, or I'm relating in a way that is helpful and makes you feel not alone, which I think is the best. Yeah. The thing that this has really accomplished, I think, for a lot of people, even if they don't have depression, all that kind of stuff, and are dealing with that, is just the relatability of living with the pandemic, living inside, living on the internet, and all that kind of stuff, and the performative nature of a lot of what we do, and just having something that feels like the expression itself feels very modern, feels millennial in the way that it's created, the editing and all that kind of stuff, and being able to just kind of relate to it on an artistic level, on a thematic level, on all those levels. Just well, for me, it's cathartic, and I think a lot of people, that was what connected with them.
I was going to reference earlier too that I definitely feel the YouTube influence. There were a lot of like shots or compositions that kind of felt like a weird like early Casey Neistat shot, you know, like those ones where he would like set up the camera and then he would like walk away and then film like him walking towards it and getting it and shit. I feel like there was a lot of that Bo Burnham did in there. And then the song Comedy, the way it's filmed after he after it goes into the different segment, it starts as the piano and then it goes into the more poppy thing where he's making jokes. I feel like once it gets to that poppy part, it almost feels like a 2013 era like Niga Higa video, or like like the lighting and the way he does like those. It's almost like it's like a montage of him being an idiot with like post zooms. It like feels like a YouTube video, and I think that was the moment that really hooked me to the his vision for the film being that style.
What's everybody's favorite song?
Yeah, 1 second, real quick. I think we're gonna run out of time. Chandler, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but my AirPods are about to die.
Okay, so we're gonna skip just so give people a heads up. We're skipping Goodfellas. You'll probably already know that because I won't include it in the thumbnail. But we did talk about that earlier in the episode, so we're skipping that. We'll do that its own separate deal, and we'll finish up our thoughts. Favorite song on Inside.
Look who's inside again.
Look who's inside again.
Look who's inside again.
I'm gonna be basic and say welcome to the internet, because not only is it like a Danny Elfman Disney
internet.
villain jam,
Yes.
but that one, God, there's so much to it that it's everything I love about Bo Burnham. It's funny. That hard cut to "You should kill your mom."
You should kill your mom.
Obama said the immigrants to vaccinate your kids.
It's that kind of like that kind of musical aesthetic I've always loved. Nick would know it also sounds very much like a Grant Kirkhope Banjo Kazooie composition.
Yes.
It's very fun, but that lyric, like, God, just the lyric, could I interest you in everything all of the time? I'm like, that is the internet.
That is
everything
it.
all of the time. If none of it's of interest to you, you'd be the first. It's just there's so many layers to it. It's very fun. It's very catchy. Yeah, it's apocalyptic.
I love his
I love it.
juxtapositions in that song. Like he says, fight for civil rights or tweet a racial slur.
Yeah.
Like
Just
there's
nine
polar opposites.
9 tips for
of
straining pasta. Here's a 9-year-old
Here's a
who
9-year-old
died.
who died.
That's so
Yes.
true. It's I think
Which
the-
Power Ranger are you? Take this quirky quiz. Obama sent the immigrants to vaccinate your kids.
I won't.
interest you?
I'm not going to say it's my favorite song, but I think I will echo Chandler in at least the quality of "Welcome to the Internet." And I think they made the correct choice. That's the one song they put on the internet to kind of promote the whole thing. And I think that if you like people who are not necessarily the target demographic, older people, and this is what I'm going to do with my dad. I'm going to say, hey, this is the best movie of 2021, and I don't think that's going to change for me.
Whoa.
Whoa!
Dispatch.
The French Dispatch comes out soon, buddy.
French
Jackass
Dispatch,
4?
French Dispatch, and Dune have such
Jackass
a lot, so much work to.
Could you
to do.
imagine if December 2021 Jacob Kaufman is going to say Dune is not as good as Bo Burnham's is?
I'm gonna say it. I'm predicting it now. Anyway, but I'm gonna go to my dad and say this is the best thing I've seen all year so far, and I would like to recommend it to you, but I'm not sure if you're gonna like it whatsoever or relate to it at all. Watch Welcome to the Internet, and if you find some meaning that connects with you in that, maybe give the special a try. I think that's a good
I agree.
little teaser. And if it's not Bo Burnham's not your thing, and you know you're not gonna like it, watch that, and you'll get a taste of what he's trying to get at.
See, I
Little
think
sampler.
I think I did the worst thing because I sent my mom FaceTime with my mom, obviously, and she probably thought going into it was going to be like a collection of Lonely Island songs.
Yeah, that one's the
and-
most like
that and
Comedy.
sexting. I feel like
No.
sexting has a little bit thematically that relates, obviously, like the isolation and having to text for sexual interactions. But I feel like sexting and FaceTime with my mom are two of the ones that kind of stand out to me as like maybe they feel kind of not like maybe out of place a little bit.
Sexting maybe, but I think the point again,
The
like
visuals of sexting are some of the best though, especially the rear projections of like titties.
yeah. But I think he's
standing
getting
there.
that's like the less personal side of the special, and so I think they fit there. In particular, FaceTime with my mom is like the first, like content and comedy are like part of like the opening sequence of the film, and then FaceTime with my mom is directly after that kind of introduction of like, oh, I filmed this special by myself in this room, and it might not be perfect, and some of the cuts might be cut to FaceTime with my mom. And it's kind of like just like the fun, kind of get you in the mood and the vibe, kind of warm
start you
you up.
off. Start
It's
you off
also
with
only
what
like
you
a-
expect.
It's only like a minute, 15 seconds, and it's actually, I think it's a pretty good jam.
It's
It's
great.
nice to listen to.
It's great.
I agree.
But yes, if FaceTime with my mom had been put, that's a little reference for you there, had been put
Yes.
later on inside, yes, it would feel very much out of place.
Oh, and if you are also a very artistic man whose father is a totalitarian businessman that doesn't know what art is, you can also relate to that line where they talk about how you doing, bud? I'm not so bad. That's the deepest talk we've ever had. So I mean, there's a lot to relate to in this for me. Not total keeps the best, but we have different outlooks on life. Clearly.
Yeah. Wait, Jacob, would you say what your favorite song was?
Oh no, I didn't. Well, it's probably All Eyes on Me. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think objectively the best song is Funny Feeling, but
Yes, I think I
All
stated
Eyes
that
on Me.
earlier.
Yeah, I would say Funny Feeling is probably. I would say my favorite though is the Look Who's Inside Again, but it's a close second is Problematic. Just in terms of like the musical composition of Problematic, I think is the best. I think it's the biggest jam.
It is also
if I'm gonna listen to it as a song and not as
Yeah.
like a reflection piece, that like Problematic would be the one I would listen to.
I think it's also one of the most visually interesting ones to
Yes.
I was
watch.
about to say Problematic
So
looks like the
fucking
last
funny.
10 minutes of Whiplash.
And
I love
the whole thing.
After the second verse, there's like 5 or 6 shots in a row of just his belly button. He just keeps cutting back to his sweaty belly button. Then he like sticks a water bottle and squirts.
it is
so
gross, but it's very funny. I find it interesting that there's some Christ-like imagery in that song, which I think you can
that's
you
the
can
best
unpack.
shot. That might be the best
He also
moment.
has cross earrings or not? Yes, on.
He has one too.
He also, very interesting, I think Bo Burnham with his hair grown out and everything has a very like millennial Jesus vibe to him.
I agree.
Millennial Jesus.
He could easily be Brian.
Brian, where did I?
He could also play in another world. He might
Millennial
be able to play
Jesus.
He might be able to
I
play
agree.
Nate. He might
I
be able to
agree.
play Nate Schuckman in the Jackie Boy biopic.
Also, he is absurdly tall.
Yeah, he's like 6'5", 6'6", or something.
Yeah,
like that. He's Pete height.
At the very
He's Pete
beginning
height.
of the special, when he's walking in and you're just getting used to
He
like the
ducks
perspective
into
of the
door,
room,
yeah.
he's taller than the door frame itself, and it looks like he's in like this kind of comical shrunken down house, but that's just a normal house.
He makes a joke
He's just
about
big.
that at some point too. I'm not sure at what point it is, but he makes a joke about how it's when he's playing the video game, which was another good part. He's like playing the video game, and the commentator's like, "Is this guy just really large, or is the room small? I'm having a hard time processing that."
Speaking of seeing Bo Burnham and his physicality, in White Woman Instagram, there's a specific shot where he's not wearing any pants or underwear, and it's just a shirt. And
He has the
pretty-
plaid shirt on.
Pretty sure you can see just a wee sliver of his dick.
Well, the fact that you were really searching it out, you were going frame by. Jacob was going frame by frame. Jacob was going frame by frame, looking for penis, looking for Bo penis, going frame by frame. Not that that's a bad. Hey, not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's funny. That whole shirt, what makes me laugh is that he's got the Ariana Grande sleeves.
Yes, it's so funny, and I love how his legs are kind of like curled up, like
He has the posture and the mannerism down.
It's
And then
so
when he brings the
funny.
avocado out from behind the shirt,
Yeah.
that's
He's like gently holding the shirt, and he's like, it's incredible.
So yeah,
I love
It's
it.
Sako.
It is.
I'm very excited. I passively recommended it to Nick. I had no idea that within a week, you guys would be. If anything, I think you guys like it more than I do. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, after
My
this,
fourth watch bumped it to a 5 stars. It's going to 5 stars.
and our friend Sanju really likes it too.
I
After
just watched his video on it. Yeah.
oh, he published it today.
He did.
No, he sent it to me. Did he
Oh.
publish it today? He sent it to me.
I thought he said he published it today on Instagram.
Oh, maybe he did.
Oh,
Okay.
maybe. Okay. What was I saying?
If that's the case, go check it out. YouTube Brandon Sanju.
Oh, yes.
For that
So
one.
after I watched it the second time, I felt, it's time. It's time to make a best of 2021 movie list, which I have 5 movies on now. And it's obviously number 1. It is also, I prematurely, I've created a best of the 2020s decade list, of which it is number 1.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess now it's definitely my best of 2021. I mean, all it has to go up against is the Justice League and Woman in the Window. So good job, Bosif.
That's some strong, stiff competition
Stiff
in the
competition.
age of content.
Yeah. So yeah, I will definitely watch it again sometime soon. I feel that it does also have a Film of the Year contender for me, but I'm very excited for The French Dispatch. So
Yes. Yeah.
How do you guys? I know this is far, far beyond any reasonable, thought. Does it have a chance at
no.
no?
I don't think
At
it
in
does.
anything. I think they're gonna shit on the fact that it's actually like technically a comedy special.
I think it will
I don't
be
think it'll do
a
anything.
real shame if it doesn't get nominated, and it won't.
It won't. It might be best original song because it's on Netflix.
Yeah, yes, best original song maybe.
I think
and I do
maybe
think
How
it has
the World
a
Works could get a nomination.
much. it has a much better chance of potentially being nominated and maybe even winning for Best Musical at the Golden Globes.
At
That
this
would be
point, the
interesting.
only award show that I give a shit about, I love the Independent Spirit Awards. I hope he cleans up. Other than that, I don't know.
Independent Spirit Awards for Best Actor
Grammys
would be interesting.
Probably has some. Will contend at the Grammys for something. I don't know. I know nothing about the Grammys, but this is good
Yeah,
music.
the Grammys
so,
are. Yeah, the Grammys are. Hell.
But the one like not an award, but like a movie list of the year of all the publications. I can see our good friends at Cahiers du Cinema and Jean-Luc Godard, who always put out the most absurd lists every year. They were the ones that put Twin Peaks: The Return at like the top of their decade list, which isn't even potentially a
That's
movie.
exceptionally based.
I could see them putting it at the end of their top 10 films of the year. Those silly
Hopefully, Paul
French.
Schrader lets it on his list. I don't know if it'll beat out Paul Schrader's film, but he. For anyone who doesn't know, Paul Schrader put First Reformed on one of his top 10 movies of the decade.
It's really based of him, honestly.
I'm going to disagree.
Friend of
with
the
that.
show, Paul Schrader.
Outside with Paul Schrader.
Facebook author Paul Schrader.
Look, if he was like a Miyazaki wholesome type and had put his movie on there, then I'd be like, that's silly, but you're a genuine person. He's just an absurd person online, and I don't think there's anything remotely based
so
or
funny.
epic
Paul
about
Schrader-
him patting himself on the back for First Reform. It's funny.
Look, ever since Trump became president, I think pre-Trump presidency, he had arguably the funniest Twitter online. Paul Schrader's filling that hole for me because now I can't even laugh at a lot of Trump's old tweets anymore. Paul Schrader is now filling that senile old weirdo.
How about Hulk Hogan? How he ends every tweet with HH. He'll be like, I think when he tweeted one time, he's like, "I'm sad, brother." HH. That was the whole tweet. It was one of the best things I've ever seen.
James Caan always ends his tweet with "end of
It's
tweet."
end of tweet. Those are so funny.
He'll like every day he'll just post a still from a movie he was in 40 years ago and say "end of tweet."
The whole caption is end of tweet.
Twitter's a strange place. I don't even know. Jesus. All right. So that was the episode of the Split Take podcast. We're gonna push Goodfellas later, whenever that is.
Yeah. Maybe
and
we'll
then
even find another movie to pair it with now.
maybe we were also going to do our spotlight episode for Raiders of the Lost Ark. We have to do that next week, so Chandler has it still fresh in his mind if he wants to do it.
Goodfellas, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Goodfellas and Bad Grandpa.
Damn. Now our podcast behind the scenes episode title of Inside Fellas doesn't work anymore.
No, we are the Inside Fellas.
That's our new we found it. Our new YouTube channel name, Inside Fellas.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Every time they do one of these and I am on, I try to make a pun of the movie titles every time, and it has killed me to my core that I could not come up with a good Inside Goodfellas pun. There was something about get your fucking shine box. Like, I was trying to come up with a joke for that. I was trying to come up with a joke involving that, but I really could not. Get inside your fucking shine box. Yeah, I guess that's pretty good.
Get your fucking shine box in the end.
This is perhaps good because now I can finish the
Get your
Goodfellas
fucking shine
commentary.
box. I just got that.
I could actually watch the Goodfellas commentary.
I actually wanted. I think I need to do a little bit more preparation to be able to adequately express, as this is our first Scorsese conversation. Anyway, enough about that.
The narrative taught in every history class is demonstrably false and pedagogically classist. Don't you know the world is built with blood and genocide and exploitation? The global network
God,
of
he's still going.
capital essentially functions to separate the
Subscribe
worker
to the
from
Split
means
Take
of
Podcast
production,
on
and
YouTube.
FBI
Go to our
kills
website,
Martin
The Film
Luther
Sync.
King,
Episode
where
69.
the Harris
It's been
There's-
fun.
We have a Discord. I'll try to
We
link
have a
it, or
Discord,
I'll
which we'll
forget.
link this time.
I went back and relinked it.
Every cop
Oh,
on the
nice.
street
And
We play Minecraft.
we have Letterboxd accounts. I always link those.
That is how the world
That's how the podcast is. Thanks for listening.
That is how the world
Finish us. Take us out, Nick.
That's how it works.
Wonderful.